Have you ever noticed how one small thing can completely change your mood, your confidence, or even your entire day? A text message goes unanswered, customer says no, sales are slower. All of a sudden, your mind starts spiraling in all these places, and before you know it, you've created a story about what happened, a story about what it means, a story about what might happen next. And often that story creates more stress, overwhelm, and exhaustion than the actual situation itself. I have mentioned stories in past episodes, but today I'm going to actually give you the powerful shift around stories. I'm going to actually show you the power of these stories today and how you can actually take the facts, change the story completely for a completely different outcome. So if you're ready for this, let's dive in because we have got some good stuff today. I'm going to help you change the story that you tell yourself. And it might be one of the fastest ways to find more peace in your business and your life. So let's go. Are you a Christian entrepreneur feeling overwhelmed and burned out, struggling to find balance in your business and life? Well, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Bridget, a wife, an entrepreneur of over 23 years, a mindset coach, and a woman who loves the Lord. I help you move from burnout to balance through simple daily systems that bring peace back into your business and your life. If you're ready for some simple strategies, real life resets, and a little encouragement to help you feel hope again, take a deep breath, close a few of those tabs in your brain, and let's dive in together. And friend, if you've ever found yourself overthinking or assuming the worst or creating stress around situations that may not even be true, well, I know this episode's going to bless you, so I'm sure it may bless somebody else that you know. So please make sure you share this with someone that may have trouble with creating their own stories, or maybe just an entrepreneur that you love and you're like, girl, you got to listen to this. Whatever it is, I want to make sure that you know that I'm so grateful for that. Also, every review you write is such a blessing to me, so thank you so much for sharing your heart. I read every one, and I'm so grateful for each and every one. So thank you again for being here. Can't wait for the rest of this episode, so let's get going. One of the most valuable tools that I have learned was the difference between a fact and a story. And honestly, once I understood this, I started seeing everything differently. Because as entrepreneurs, wives, moms, leaders, and women, we tell ourselves stories all day long. And the problem is that we often don't realize what we're doing and that we're even doing it. We think the story is the truth because many times it's simply an interpretation of the facts. And those stories can create unnecessary stress, fear, anxiety, comparison, discouragement, and overwhelm. And in fact, I would argue that many of us are not exhausted from the actual circumstances. We're exhausted from the stories that we're telling ourselves around our circumstances. So I'm fixing to teach you how to know the difference and how to get over these stories so we can live in the data, the true facts, and live in a lot more peace. So let's learn the difference between a fact and a story. So there's a question that I have heard in the past. If you remember or you've read in the beginning of my podcast, I became a mindset coach during the pandemic. And I did that because I wanted to be a better leader for the women that I had the privilege to lead. And in one of the coaching sessions I was in, one of my coaches said, "You always know the difference between a fact and a story if you ask yourself the question, can I defend this in a court of law?" That is such a powerful statement. So what do we mean by that? So if you say something like, "No one is buying from me. I can't get anyone to book with me. So-and-so said that she's having trouble, so I'm going to have trouble too." Whatever the story is that you have built in your mind, can you defend it in a court of law? So let's just take the "no one will buy from me" as an example. So do we have evidence to prove that no one, and by the way, when we use generalized statements like that, it definitely is usually a story. Because when we say everyone, that is meaning, if we're really being honest, that every single person in creation will not buy from you. Now, we know we have not talked to every single person. So usually what we've done is we've collected data by one experience. And for example, I have coached women in my business that I have the privilege to lead and love, and they might come with a statement of like, I can't get anybody to buy from me. And I say to them, oh, really? Okay, so tell me more about that. And it's like, yeah, I reached out to so-and-so and she said that she wasn't interested. So from that one experience, this person had built the evidence in their mind that no one will buy based on one experience, or no one will book an appointment with me. Okay, well, how many people did you actually try to book with? Well, I reached out to a couple people, but they said they were busy. So we built in our mind that means everybody else is busy too. So we have to be very, very careful that the story that we've built around anything has any evidence to support it. So let me teach you a framework that you can run through to help yourself debunk this, okay? So first of all, if you can't defend it, if you don't have evidence, then it's probably not a fact. It's probably just a story, okay? So let me actually run through. A customer hasn't responded yet. That's a fact. A story, she's upset with me. That's a story. Fact, sales are down this month. That's a fact. My business is failing. That's a story. Someone looks serious during a conversation. Okay, that's a fact. They don't like me. That's a story. Do you see the difference? Facts are neutral. And I want you to remember this very powerful statement, that anything that happens to you only has emotion unless you give it emotion. It has no emotion. So someone could be telling you that they've lost their favorite loved one or a pet or something dramatic happened in their life, but if they don't put any emotion to it, you might say, oh gosh, was she sad? I'm not sure. Because nothing has emotion unless you give it emotion. And unfortunately, as women, I will say the one thing that God did do to us is we're very emotional creatures. And men are very black and white. You know, they are very much, okay, this, and this. And sometimes we get too much in our feelings. And I'll tell you, when I was new in my business, it was funny. I'd gotten all these leads in my business, and I was in my office and I was just agonizing over all the leads because they weren't calling me back and all this stuff. And I was just sad and frustrated. And my husband came in, he was like, what's going on? I was like, well, I've called all these people and nobody's responding, or they're telling me no. And so he just took the leads, calmly laid them in my trash can next to me, and he looked at me and he said, then just go get some more. So he wanted to fix it for me, and I wanted to agonize over it. I wanted to continue to wallow in the fact that it wasn't happening. And he was like, let's just fix it. So the fact was, the leads weren't good. That was a fact. But man, I had a lot of stories around it. So it's really important that we remember that nothing that happens has emotion unless we give it emotion. I also teach something to my organization called Numbers Protect Your Heart. So if you're in a business that you actually have to work numbers, like you're so many calls equals this, or so many customers equals this, or so many reach outs equals this, then those numbers protect your heart. Because when you're doing those reach outs, and the fact is that you maybe reached out, let's say, to 5 people and you haven't gotten the results you wanted, but you know your numbers are 1 in 10 will say yes. If that is the proven data, then we're getting so worked up about 5 people. Let's get excited. That just means your 1 is coming in the next 5. So we can look at it so many different ways. So we can choose to be happy, or we can choose to be positive, or we can be negative, and we can build some negative stories. So let me teach you this framework that works really, really well to kind of process this and why these stories matter so much. So let's take a fact. And a fact is, I've reached out to 10 contacts and no one has booked with me. Okay, that's going to be our fact that we're going to work with. I've reached out to 10 people and no one has booked with me. The story we built around that is that nobody will book with me, that my business is failing, nobody will book with me. So if that's our story, then what emotion is that going to breed? Probably sadness, probably some anxiousness, some stress, overwhelm, frustration. So then based on those emotions, what action are we going to take? Probably not much. We're probably not going to be super motivated to work our business because we're not really super excited about it because we're feeling all these negative emotions. So then what's our result going to be? Not good, because we're not doing anything. So we took a fact that the first 5 leads we reached out to did not book with us, did not, respond with us. And we led that into a story that led into an emotion, that led into an action, that led into a result. So let's think about this for a minute. The facts are not what was bad. It was the story that we built around the fact. So that's why 2 people could experience the exact same situation and have completely different responses. And they're telling themselves completely different stories. And that's why. And that's powerful because it means we have more control than we think. Have you ever met people that are just super positive and they just don't see the negative in it? I often look at the cancellations and the no's as God's provision. So we could take that same data and say, oh my goodness, I'm so excited. These 5 did not respond, which just means they are not for me. That God has something better for me. So I cannot wait to see what the next 5 are. Because the next 5 is going to hold my next yes. And that next yes can be the best thing that's ever happened in my business. Wow. What a difference, right? When we go from the story we had to now the story I just built. So what do you think that story is going to breed? It's going to breed some awesome emotions, some excitement, anticipation. And then we're going to go into action because we want to get to that one that could change our business. And then the result is going to be wins, excitement, because we're actually moving forward. So can you see how if you take this framework and you use it, it is going to literally change everything about your business? And always taking your story and making it and making sure you're comparing it to the actual data that supports that story. Can you defend it in a court of law? Most of the time, the answer is no. And so because of that, we got to do something different. So we can change the story. So now this doesn't mean that we're pretending that everything is fine. I want to be clear. We're not doing some toxic positivity here. This is about curiosity. So instead of asking, why is this happening? You could try asking, what else could be true? Instead of, I'm failing, maybe you could ask, what am I learning? Or instead of thinking, they're upset with me, maybe just they're busy. Instead of, this isn't working, maybe this season is teaching me something. And so everything that happens to us is only what we respond to, my friends, and how we respond to it. And I just can't stress that enough because I know the most positive people in the world that just are so, in my world, I should say, that are so happy. And they still have a lot of bad stuff. But they're so in tune with the Lord. They trust His goodness and faithfulness that He's going to open the right doors. He's going to shut the wrong doors. That when those things happen and they're not great, then you're like, you know what? There's something better coming. That's just His provision. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. And there's so much excitement in that. So one small shift can change everything because when the story changes, the emotion changes. And when the emotion changes, the actions change. And when the actions change, then we're going to get some results. I can speak for my over 20 years as an entrepreneur that most of the time, the lack of success for the women that I've had the privilege to lead, it isn't because they weren't capable or they didn't have that awesome P word potential. It's because we quit before the breakthrough. And we quit before the breakthrough because there's typically a story that we have built around something that happened. As a matter of fact, when I was a brand new leader, I met a girl in a store and she saw my pen. I had something on that talked about my company. She's like, oh, I see you're with so-and-so. And I'm like, yes. And she said, I was too. And I said, oh, really? What happened? And she said, oh, yeah, I tried a couple of appointments, but it just didn't really work for me. Wow. She tried a couple of appointments and it didn't work for her. Now, what if Michael Jordan would have said, he missed his first couple of free throws and said, you know what, basketball is just not for me. What if Tom Brady would have got on the football field and said, you know what, man, I'm not good at this. I missed a few throws. Can you imagine how different their life would have been? They probably have missed more than they've ever made, but they didn't let it define them. It wasn't their story. They were choosing a different story to get a different outcome. And that's what you can do too. So I just want to believe with all my heart that we can rewrite the story. And I think one of the healthiest things we can do when we're feeling like we're spiraling into some stories that aren't serving us is to ask ourselves, is this a fact or is this a story? One thought that has helped me tremendously is this. Just because you think it does not mean it's true. You do know that stats have been proven that over 80% of what we think typically in a day is negative. So just because you think it or feel it does not mean it's true. We have to retrain our mind. You know, your mind is like this filing cabinet that has kept all of the data from all of the past, and it doesn't want you to hurt. Your brain's number one job is to protect you from danger. That's the way God designed it. So whether you're going to touch a hot stove or whether you are just going to make a booking call, your brain can see them both the same as danger. And so when you are resistant to do the thing, whatever it is, then it tells the brain the story of, oh, she sees this as danger. We probably shouldn't do this. And when we do it and don't get the result, it reinforces that the brain's like, see, yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that. But when we do it and we are smarter than our thoughts and our brain, and we keep doing something repetitiously, it actually rewrites the story. It literally changes your brain. Do you know that you can change your brain, that your brain is neuroplastic and it can change? God made our brain to be renewed so we can change those old stories and those old patterns. And so that's why I love this so much. So if you are someone that says, oh my goodness, I am a story girl, I can see how I have clung to stories that were not factual, stories that did not serve me, then I want you to know today that we can rewrite that. So if you're feeling exhausted from reeling from these stories, then today is the day, my friends, that you get to step into your imaginary, maybe you are an attorney on here, but if you're not, an imaginary little attorney every day, that ask yourself the question, can I defend this in a court of law? And I want you to ask yourself that question when you spiral. And if you're like, actually, I have no factual data to support that. I really don't. And so if that's the case, now there's so much more we can dig into as why you're building that story and where does that come from and, you know, all of that. And that's definitely many more episodes to come. But just know that today is the first step of just looking at what we tell ourselves and starting this week thinking, you know what? I'm not going to live in my stories. I'm going to live in the facts. And the facts are that I can do this. And the fact if other people have done it, I can do it too. So what do you think about that? It's a new week. It's a new day. And I'm excited for what God is going to do. So, fact or story? Bring awareness to it and see what changes. And sometimes peace will come from just changing the story, flipping the switch, and telling yourself something different, letting you believe something different. So thank you, friends, so much for being here. I hope that this framework and just this way of looking at it really does bless you. I'm excited to hear your breakthroughs. I can't wait to read your reviews. I'm so grateful for you. I hope you have a blessed week, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Hey, friend, I hope this gave you a little more clarity and a whole lot of hope today. And if it did, would you share it with another Christian entrepreneur who's juggling all the things too? And if you haven't already, leave a quick review. It helps more women find this space. And remember, you don't need a full restart. Maybe you just need a simple reset. Small steps done consistently really do create change. And there is so much hope in that. So take a deep breath. Today is a new day, and you've got this. And I can't wait to see you next week.